Hi there.
Janine?
Yes.
Hey, it's Brock.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Sorry you won't see a picture of me. We don't have video here, but
Oh, is that right?
just a lovely horse. How do you think we're going to do tonight?
You mean in terms of success or failure?
No, I mean in terms of, just everyone hearing what they need to hear and, seeing what they need to see.
Yeah.
I mean, I never know success or failure, so.
Right. Yeah. Who knows how it's going to go. I hope everybody's able to get in. I intentionally, dialed in 15 minutes early because I expected there to be hiccups, and there were. So
It was for me too. Even mine, I had to update. It said I needed a new version, so.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
Oh, here comes Larry. You can't see it. You can see.
Oh, he can't see us.
Yeah, we don't have, but you can talk to him if you like. Brian Fahey, their attorney.
Brian Fahey, their attorney?
What? Is this the
Get out.
king? Is this his
It's
honor?
Larry
Hi, Larry. How you doing, bud?
rummaging around, even though he
Hey, how are
doesn't
you?
have to
I'm
be
good,
here
thanks.
for the meeting.
You doing well?
Yeah. Yeah. How about you?
A little preoccupied right now. We got a lot going on here in Bedminster.
Yeah. Good stuff.
No, not all of it.
Oh, yeah? What's going on?
What's that?
This is all recording.
Oh,
I'm
we're
sorry.
recording now already?
It starts right from the moment
Oh,
you start
all
the
right.
meeting. So,
Well, here.
sorry, just.
I'm going to go back to doing a statement on public safety for the weekend, and
Good for you. That's
you
very
have fun
important.
at your hearing. Be well, BJ.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.
I have Thomas.
Tom, I got you on the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, sideways now.
Hey.
Perfect. You just got to unmute. Good evening, Tom.
Hi, Janine. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Tom. Tom and or Janine, how many of these things have you had virtually?
This is our third land use board meeting, but I'm sure Tom has had plenty Zooms for other meetings.
Yeah, I guess about 9 or something, but we're getting better.
We're all you got on the agenda tonight, right?
Yeah, for applications, that's right. That's right.
Okay. Well, we got three
They
witnesses.
take long. They take longer though because you got to be patient and give everybody a chance to go one at a time and all that.
Right. I was going to say we have three witnesses, but we'll try to get through them as quickly as possible.
No problem. Take your time because it's different. It's good. The share screen function seems to work very well. For, pointing out things.
Yeah, Brian Fahey, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Talk to you in years.
It's nice to see you.
too. Hey, Tom, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. And I assume that's Janine behind the bed, Mr.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Doesn't look like you, Janine.
Hey, Carol.
Yeah.
Carol, on mute.
You got to unmute, Carol.
Just click on your microphone down below. Yeah.
Okay,
There you go.
yeah, okay.
Adjust my camera here.
I'd like to get rid of the yellow jaundice.
The what?
The yellow jaundice I have.
The yellow jaundice.
Yeah, I have yellow jaundice. I can't get rid of this lighting. I don't know what to do with it. I've changed.
Joe, it hurts when I do this.
Yeah, I know. I've changed the light bulbs. I've done everything to try to, everybody else is nice and clear and I've got this yellow jaundice thing going on
You
here.
know what you can do, Carol? Put a background up or something, like, go to San Francisco like Tom.
Yeah, okay. Hi, Lou.
Hey, Lou, how are you? Lou, are you doing the call in separately like you always do, or are you you can just click on your microphone and unmute. There you go. There you go.
I finally figured it out.
You want to call in?
Is that Brian there?
Yeah. Can you believe it?
Yep. Yep, there's Brian.
And Frank's coming. Hey, Frank. I swear that picture of Frank looks like the cover of an album.
Yeah.
Very cool album.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? 20
Very Como. Yeah, I agree.
There's Frank.
20 years ago, I looked old, and that's the picture from 20 years ago. If you think I look anything like that today, I'm really happy to hear that.
There's a resemblance, Frank. There it is.
I hate seeing my bald self on these, it's like I'm looking at myself the whole time we're doing this. So
Well, none of us are attractive on this thing, that's for sure.
it's not our best self.
It is not.
We've got a few new faces today. Or hey, Tim. Unmute, Tim.
You're muted.
Hey
Tim.
guys,
There you go. Hey, Tim.
how are you, Jeff?
How are you?
How you doing?
I'm learning. By the time I figure out how to use all this, it's going to be back to normal.
Oh, I hope so, Tim. I hope you're right.
Well, plenty of time to learn how to use it. This is dragging on a lot longer than anybody thought.
Evening,
sure.
everybody.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Hi, Scott.
Hi, guys. How y'all doing tonight?
Hey, Scott.
Good. Hi, Scott.
Scott. Hey, Tim.
Who's the fishing picture?
What?
Who's that with the fish?
That's Scott.
That's me. It's better than you guys see in the back of my head as I actually look at the plans and documents on my screens that are on the other side of the room. So
Where was that?
figured
What
out-
lake is that? What lake is that?
that is actually up off of Route 31. That is Oxford Lake. Furnace Lake in Oxford, New Jersey.
What kind of fish is that? A hybrid? What is that?
That's a muskie. I caught that last Sunday,
Oh, wow.
Nice.
and I'm plotting revenge on them all this weekend.
Did you give it back or did you take it with you?
Oh, I pretty much released them all, but I was into one that was probably 5 or 10 pounds heavier than that one, and he bit me off. So I'm going to go get my hook back next weekend.
Looks like Frank is hooking up with the International Space Station this week.
I like that.
That's cool.
That's Dr. Nick.
Yeah, he took a ride on the SpaceX rocket, right?
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
How do you do? So you can see everybody? Oh, I got you. Here we
Pretty
go.
much.
Yep.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Yeah.
Nick, you're like
everybody.
floating in space. Oh my God.
Brady Bunch is getting smaller and smaller the more people.
Hey, George.
Hey, George. Hey, Anna.
George is on. George is on. Yep. Okay. Janine, you're on?
I am on.
Okay. We're not quite ready yet. I think we're missing
Yeah,
just a
we still
couple
got a
yet.
couple more.
Cool.
Yeah, we got a couple more. There's George. Okay, Paul's on.
Well, I see the Verrazano Bridge behind him. Or maybe the GW, actually.
You are correct. That is the GW Bridge.
Yep. I guess it was
George,
the hill with the
yeah.
hill on the right. That's what gave it away. Yep. Okay.
Who's missing? Rich?
Rich.
Did I see Ann? I saw Ann, right? Ann's on. Yep. Anna's on. Yep.
And are Larry and Colin dialing in or not?
We have a Board of Adjustment tonight.
Yeah,
so I
no
don't-
Larry or Colin tonight.
Okay. All right. So we're only just missing Rich. That's it.
I'm going to say yes, that looks right.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
okay. So
John
you want to
Peel,
do a
you
roll
gotta
call?
unmute yourself. John Peel, unmute.
I'm here. Yep, I'm here.
Okay, Janine, you want to take roll call?
I was gonna read the public meeting first, right?
Well, usually we take roll call first, but
I'm so sorry.
that's all right. No problem. We're all discombobulated.
Yeah, I'm just making sure, okay, I don't have anybody in the waiting room, okay. Mr. Schrackloff,
Here.
Mr.
Space.
Mr. Rodelius,
George, unmute.
Unmute.
Present.
Space bar works
Mr.
too.
Leonard,
Here.
Mr. DiGiovanni,
Here.
Mr. Zepnik,
Present.
Ms. Arabana,
Here.
Mr. Walter,
Here.
Chairwoman Gutschall.
Here.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read the open public meeting statement.
Yes.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Land Use Board was filed with the Township Clerk and sent to the Bernardsville News and the Courier News and to all subscribers, and posted at the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey, on January 16th, 2020.
Do we have a flag, Janine, since we don't have our mayor?
I don't, because I don't have a screen. I just have the
Okay.
horse.
Oh, right, okay. All right, well, then we'll just try to make it. It's really gonna suffer, but let's go for it. The flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and
and to the republic
for which
it stands,
one
nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for
for
all.
all. Not too
Thank you, George.
bad.
Thank you, George.
Not too bad is right.
That was better than it's been, so that's good. All right, we have some minutes to approve. We have our minutes from our May 7th meeting. Has he had a time to review them? And we need a motion.
Well moved.
Have a
I'm
second?
sorry, is that Nick that made the
Second.
motion?
Jeff.
Guys, let's remember that I can't always tell who you are, so just say who you are and then make your motion and second it.
Yeah, please say. your name
Seconded.
first. That was Scott.
Okay, Scott, and Nick was up first. Got it. Thank you.
Correct. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? I think everybody's eligible. Okay, our May 14th minutes. Has everybody looked at those? Do we have a motion?
So moved. Scott Zupnik.
Thank you.
Second, Nick Strongbow.
That was Nick that seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed or abstain? Okay, both minutes have passed. We also have two resolutions. We have our resolution from our Old Farm orchards, where we had a sign. Have we had a chance to look at that as well?
Yep.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Jeff.
Tim Walker, I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. Scott.
We need a roll call. Janine?
Mr. Strackhoff,
Aye.
Mr. Rodelius,
Aye.
Mr. Leonard,
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni,
Aye.
Mr. Zupnik,
Aye.
Ms. Urbana,
Aye.
Mr. Walter,
Aye.
Chairwoman Gutschall.
Aye. Motion is passed. Okay, we have another resolution for Lamington River Farms. Again, we need a motion.
So moved.
To approve. Nick Strongbow.
Scott and Nick, thank you.
Okay, roll call, Janine.
Mr. Strackhoff,
Aye.
Mr. Rodelius,
Aye.
Mr. Leonard,
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni,
Aye.
Mr. Zupnik,
Aye.
Ms. Urbana,
Aye.
Mr. Walter,
Aye.
Chairwoman Gutschall.
Aye. Motion has passed, both resolutions. Janine, is there anyone from the public on the Zoom?
Yes, I believe, I'm sorry, I'm just admitting Rich now.
Okay. Okay.
Besides the applicant, we also have Dr. Scalia, who is watching, visiting.
Okay.
And I believe Jake Perry, also from the Recorder News, is also with us.
Okay, is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment or a question about tonight's meeting that's not on the agenda?
No.
Hearing nothing, we'll continue on. Okay. Paul, is there anything with Bedminster Farms that you want to talk about now?
Yes, that'll be on the agenda for next week's meeting. I'm working on a letter now. You should be receiving it tomorrow morning. And the recommendation will be in that letter, and the action should be taken next week, is that it be deemed complete, subject to the combination of two of the lots, because one of the lots did not receive Board of Health approval, so it would be joined with one of the adjoining lots, so there would be one fewer lot in the subdivision. The proposal originally was 3 existing lots becoming 9 proposed lots for a net gain of 6. Under the, what I recommend that the board review is going to be 3 existing lots becoming 8.
Will we be getting new plans for that, Paul, or will we be working with what we have?
We'll be working with what we have, and the comment letter will advise the board which lots should be joined.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you. Okay. I guess we're ready for our hearing. Riley Clyde, are we on board here to start?
I'm ready to go.
Okay. You want to?
Okay. Why don't I swear in the witnesses, and that way we'll go one at a time, but let's swear in all. I think there's 3 witnesses, so probably Mr. Fox, Mr. Peel, and someone else, the architect. Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes, I do.
Are there 3? I only heard 2.
I think John Booth is muted.
Oh, John, please unmute yourself and state whether you swear to tell the truth.
I do. I do.
All right, then would the 3 witnesses also, one at a time, please state your name, spell your last name, and give us at least a business address, please.
Paul Fox with Apgar Associates in Far Hills.
This is John Peel with PK Environmental in Chatham, New Jersey.
John Booth, architect, Basking Ridge, New Jersey.
Thank you. The board, I know the board recognizes and accepts the qualifications of Paul Fox as a professional engineer and John Peel as a professional planner and environmental consultant. I'm not sure that we've ever qualified Mr. Booth, but we could do that before we just before he testifies. But please go ahead, Mr. Fahey.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very
Paul,
much,
thank
Mr. Collins and Madam Chairwoman. Nice to see you.
Yes, you too, Brian.
Yeah, I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of good friends, and thank you for taking the time to join us tonight for this meeting. I, of course, am Brian Fahey, and I'm a lawyer, and I represent Rilocate Incorporated, tonight's applicant. The subject properties are commonly known as 280, 300, 308, and 312 Main Street in Bedminster, which of course is in the village, starting at the corner of Somerville Road and running north from there. North from there? I think it's north. It is formerly 4 tax lots, 2 of which had been previously merged, I think by action of the tax assessor. In the present condition, there are 3 tax lots, lots 1, 3, and 4, all within block 34 of the township of Bedminster. The purpose of this application is to present a reconfiguration of the subject properties, I should say, such that we are going to take the existing 3 lots, reconfigure all of that, and ultimately create 2 conforming lots, each with its own use. What's there now is a mess, let's just say. There's a couple of maybe not so derelict, but not the most beautiful buildings in the village of Bedminster, and we're going to be taking them down, separating lot 1, which has 2 current uses, into a 1-use lot, and putting a slightly expanded building, leaving the main building and adding an addition to it that will remove almost all of the variance conditions that exist on the property. There still are several variances, and we'll get into that with both Mr. Fox and Mr. Peel as we go through the process. And in the interest of time and consideration, I'm going to introduce Paul Fox right away, and I'm going to let Paul go through the engineering and the present conditions and what we're doing. Paul?
Thank you, Brian. Just to familiarize everyone with the 4 buildings that are presently out there, starting on the corner of Main Street and Somerville Road is the current appliance store, which received approval a few years ago. That building historically was Bedminster Ford and has gone through several uses over time and is presently used for retail sale of appliances. The next building down is the former Country Picnic, which was a deli building. That and the Ford, the appliance store, are on the same lot at this point because those lots were merged. The next building over used to be the Sports People many years ago. Most recently, it was used by the deli for some satellite purposes for cooking and catering work. And then the last building to the east is a very narrow structure on quite a small lot that has been used for a variety of purposes, but most recently has been vacant for a number of years. So that's what the existing conditions are. Again, there's 3 lots. The 2 westerly buildings are on a single lot at this point, and then the 2 other buildings are each on their own lots. What we're proposing to do is actually demolish the 2 buildings that are the 2 easterly buildings on lots 3 and 4. And what we would do in place of those 2 buildings is construct a new 2-way driveway that would lead down to the rear parking. Right now, it's sort of a split driveway where a very narrow driveway goes along one side of the building on lot 4, and a narrow driveway goes down the other side of the building on lot 4. Those conditions would be eliminated, and a standard driveway would be constructed that would allow 2-way traffic safely down to the back parking area. The back parking area would be improved with curbing and a sidewalk, as well as a formal loading area. The existing loading dock on the appliance building would be modified slightly to improve its usability. And then on the upper section of the parking at the street level, we would increase the size of that as well as provide some handicap parking. Finally, the building that is currently, or what used to be the Country Picnic building, an addition would be constructed on that to provide retail space both at the street level as well as at the lower level access from the rear. So that's really the total project that we're proposing. Overall, as Mr. Fahey pointed out, we will be eliminating a number of nonconformities, including nonconforming lot sizes. The final outcome will create 2 lots, the minimum half-acre size. Each of those will have its own building, and additionally, the overall amount of lot coverage for the property will be reduced.
Well, how about the side yard setbacks?
Does anyone have any questions for me from the board?
Well, why don't you just go through the side yard setbacks on the newly configured lot 3? Paul, can you hear me?
Yes. What did you say?
I'm talking about the side yard setback variance on newly configured lot 3.
Yes, that's.
Paul, before you, this is Tom Collins going for now. Is it possible, Paul, for you to share your screen with a copy of the site plans?
Unfortunately, I have that ability, so I can't do that.
Okay. Paul, is there any possibility you can put the screen up? If you can't, I have a copy.
I can see if I can find it. I'm sorry, I just disappeared there for a minute or so. I had apparently a conflict with Bill Gates, and he.
That's never a good thing. Use Apple.
Let me see if I can find the plan. I don't see that I have live links in my agenda to get to the information.
I don't know what that noise is.
I think Frank might be feeding back.
Why are you blaming
think it's-
Frank?
Really? Jeez.
I think also.
I got speaker view on, and when it makes that noise, I see Frank's face. It's the only hint I got.
Okay, fair enough. Brian,
There
just
was
for
an email
clarity, for
sent on the 26th of May that included the Relocate site plan, subdivision plan. Is that where you want to look at?
Yes.
Yes.
Brian, just so everybody's clear, we started out with 4 lots here, lots 1 through 4. Like you said, lots 1 and 2 were previously combined by operation of the tax assessor. Lots 3 and 4 were separate lots until now, but lot 3 will be the surviving lot, right?
That's correct.
And there'll be some adjustment to the line between lots, the old lot 2 and lot 3, to accommodate the existing conditions.
Well, in addition to that, lot 1 is going to shrink because we're going to separate the existing country picnic building. Right now, the country picnic building and the appliance building are on one tax lot. So we're going to redraw that tax line so that each future lot will have one use and only one use.
So 2
So you'll end
lots,
up with
each with
3?
1 use.
So, Brian, you'll end up with 3 lots then?
2 lots.
Still 2?
There are 3 lots currently, and if our application is granted, there will be 2 lots. Each will be conforming in size, and each will have one use on it.
The country picnic building was going to be moving from lot 1 to lot 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right. Is all the board able to follow what Paul has said? Or I guess
I'm
we're
having a bit of
still
a hard
working.
time, Carol.
Yeah, I thought it might be. It is hard to follow. If we can try to get, do you have it, Rich? Do you have the site plan on your
I
computer?
have the site plan in front of me, and if I understand it correctly, what is existing lot 1 is going to shrink. What is currently lot 3 is going to be expanded and combined with lot 4,
Correct. That's what I understand.
That's correct.
right? And then
Can-
we have
Rich, can-
lot 5,
Rich-
which pretty much remains intact, or are we changing the
Rich,
way the
can you
meets and
share your
bounds of
screen?
lot 5?
Rich, can you share your screen that you're looking at?
I can try. Hang on one second.
On the bottom of, on the bottom of the thing here, just look for that middle share screen, share content.
Hey,
I'm
Rich,
trying to share mine, but the problem is with the PDF, I have all these yellow comment bubbles have come up, and I can't get rid of those.
Host disabled participant sheen sharing. Lot 5 is not part of the application. Can you help me out, Janine?
You should know lot 5 is not part of the application.
that's right. Forget about lot 5,
I'm
Rich.
sorry, Rich, what was your question?
Can you help me out? Let me
Lots
share
of
my
questions
screen.
are 1, 3, and 4.
Okay.
So I have a question, and I know Lot 2 no longer exists. It was previously merged into Lot 1. But is the new dividing line between Lot 1 and Lot 3 going to be where the old line was between Lot 1 and Lot 2?
Paul Fox, would you answer that?
Yes, that's correct. It's going to be largely exactly where it was coming down from Main Street. It jogs a little bit to one side to make sure that we keep the steps going from the lower level up to the appliance store parking lot, to keep those all on one lot. But otherwise, you're correct. That lot line is largely where it was before those 2 lots were merged. And really, that's the main objective here, is to recreate that lot line, so then we can have 2 lots that are conforming in size, each with their own building, and no longer have that confusion with multiple buildings on one lot.
Okay, and I don't see it on the plan, but is there going to be an easement for Lot 1 to use that driveway and that back parking lot?
Yeah.
That's correct.
We will absolutely be doing cross easements, and Mr. Collins will be involved in that process to the degree that he would like to be.
Paul Fox. Paul, if you look at sheet 7, is that the best one to look at to see the new configuration?
Yeah.
Yes, so let's all take a break now and just do one thing. Janine, could you turn on Rich Travellini's screen share function? And Rich, if you get it turned on, if you could put your sheet 7, if you have it, sheet 7 of 8 up.
Still
And let's let
disabled right
Mr.
now. Janine?
Yeah,
Janine,
I don't
that's-
see anything. I mean, I have screen share, multiple participants can share. Did that do anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, did it change for you though,
All
Rich?
right, there you go. Okay.
Okay. And we'll probably lose Rich's picture. You're very handsome, Rich, tonight, but I guess the screen is
see
going to
it?
become the. I
Not
don't see it
yet.
yet.
Here we go.
Oh, wait, here's something.
Here it comes.
There we go.
There you go.
Is that the one we want?
That's great.
Yeah.
I think it is. And Mr. Fox, if you can now, if you could describe everything you'd like to describe about the proposed subdivision and site plan. And I know you can't point to it, but maybe like you would with a paper exhibit, use words to talk about the directions and corner, northwest and southwest and et cetera.
Sure. The new two-way access driveway will be coming down from Main Street on the right-hand side, exactly there, coming down to the parking lot in the rear. That will be cleaned up and provided with curbing and sidewalk. And additionally, the loading area for the appliance store all the way to the left will be improved so it's more accessible to trucks that come in and bring sample appliances for display. And also for trucks that are backing into where the deli building is to drop off deliveries. When you look at the property line there, the property line that we're proposing to create is exactly as discussed, is the dividing line that used to be between lots 1 and 2. We're just recreating that with a slight adjustment to keep part of the stairway on lot 1, as well as to make sure that each lot has a minimum of a ½ an acre in lot size. So the rear area at the lower level will have 20 parking spaces, and then the upper area in front will have a total of 8 spaces, all accessible from the street level. You can see in that picture directly next to the sidewalk, there's a proposed pergola with a seating area. This was a feature requested by the HPC. This was not suggested by us. Our own personal feelings was that it creates somewhat of an attractive nuisance for the site, as well as a potential area for vandalism to occur. But this was something that the HPC required to have some sort of site feature directly adjacent to the sidewalk.
Oh, let's use the word
I thought-
recommended, not required, okay?
Yes.
I thought I read that there was a bus stop there.
Yeah.
Actually, we did look into that, and that is merely an artifact that's shown on Google Maps. It used to be a stop for the Lakeland bus route, but the Lakeland bus no longer goes up Somerville Road or to Main Street. And there's no New Jersey Transit bus that covers this route either. So
Okay, thank you.
stops anywhere.
I have a question, Paul and or Brian. Can you give us a little more insight as to what the HPC was thinking when they decided to recommend that pergola? Is that an open seating area? It seems to me that it's right on the street or very close to the street. Can you give us a little bit more information about that?
Jonathan Booth, the architect for the project, was at the HPC meetings and can speak more to that. But I was also at one of the hearings, and the general recommendation from the HPC was that they wanted some street/sidewalk feature for the public. So that was their recommendation.
Okay. I have one more question. On your plan there, it says proposed 1-story addition. Isn't it really a 2-story addition?
Well, it's 1 story at the main street level, and then there's a lower level or a basement. So because the amount of the exposed area, we did include the lower level in our FAR, but it's essentially the basement area that is the lower level. At the street level, it's just 1 story.
Okay, so, but it's still a 2-story structure.
I would have to.
How much, Paul, how much of the first floor is exposed from the lower level?
Well, how much the lower level is exposed is really the rear area that faces the Board of Ed property, as well as the one side that faces the loading area. So if I had to do a full calculation on that, I don't think it would meet the criteria for a story above grade, but rather than try to really bend the rules, we did include that as floor area within our FAR calculation.
Okay,
You
so
see
if we
the
look,
switch that I made, guys, does that help?
yes, that's good,
Yeah.
Rich. On that picture right there, in the lower right-hand corner, it looks like a 2-story building.
It does, absolutely.
Guys,
So I
Yeah.
just want to correct, because the plan says 1-story addition, and when I looked at it closer, it seemed to be a 2-story structure.
As viewed from the rear, you're correct. It would appear to be a 2-story structure. That's correct.
Okay.
And it's
then
going to be used, it's going to be used at both floors?
Yes, that's correct.
So this is really a basement entrance here?
That's correct.
It's like a walkout?
Correct.
Hey, Rich, can you go up 2 windows? No, on the lower right-hand corner, but the 3rd set of windows.
Oops.
Yes, there.
One more.
One more.
One more
Up top,
floor up.
Rich. No,
Above
yeah,
the-
there.
Right there.
Is that loft space or is that another story?
That's part of the vaulted space within the main floor.
So there
the-
isn't another floor, it's going to be vaulted, open loft space inside on the first floor.
Anna,
Yeah.
would it help you if we introduce Jonathan Booth, the architect, and he can actually speak to that point, or do you want to do that now, or do you want to do that when Paul Fox is
Okay.
done?
Nice if we had a
Yeah,
section
let's
through the
go with
building.
Paul. Let's finish with Paul first. Let's finish what might be there. Is there anything else that we want to talk about with Paul before we get into architect?
I do have some questions. If we could go back to.
Go ahead, Lou.
the-
Go ahead,
the,
Lou.
Yeah, if we could go back to the subdivision plan, Rich, if you can move that back.
Hang on. This one?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Fox, it appears to me that the back parking lot, the rear parking lot, is that going to be paved or is that gravel? What do you have there?
The proposal is for a gravel parking lot. The driveway coming down from Main Street would be paved.
And how do you make that transition between the two?
There are
Lou,
just
if I could just jump in right here, it's my recommendation, consistent with other projects we've done in the area, it should be paved.
Yeah, we all agree on that.
And I almost don't think we need to have too much of a discussion about transitions because it should be paved.
It should also be noted that Dr. Scalia, who is on this call right now, I think would like to recommend that it be paved as well.
Consistent with his
We've asked
approval.
as a design waiver not to pave it, but based on Mr. Ferraro's recommendation, I think we would suggest that paving it might be what the board's preference.
Okay.
Prudent choice.
Paul, I noticed in your letter, I don't know if you want to talk about it to any degree, but there were quite a few items about stormwater or, control. You want to talk about that part of it?
Sure, I can try. I think I gave up on Mr. Gates and now I'm dealing with Mr. Jobs and working off my iPad. So things are a little bit different in what I can have and what I can look at the same time. Let me flip to my stormwater comments. I don't believe there was anything of major significance. It just requires some additional detailing on the plans to make it all work.
Okay, not being an expert, it looked like there were quite a few things. So as long as you feel you can, they're under control, that's all I care.
I have some questions, Paul.
Yeah.
If the parking lot is going to be paved, will there be some underground drainage systems in in there, or is there a plan for that yet?
Well, there's a question of what is it now? What is it proposed to be? What's the existing coverage? And what is the proposed lot coverage? And that's part of the analysis that needs to be done. As I look at this from a very quick level, it looks like it's going to be not going to be a major stormwater development. It's going to be a minor development. So there should not be a lot of difficulty in making it work. There may be a dry well, but there may not be. We have to look at the final numbers, and I need Paul Fox to run those calculations for me.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else from the board that wants to have any questions? No? Okay, not hearing any. Yeah, Lou?
Actually, I do have one more, Carol. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry to slow everyone down. What about, Paul Fox, what about the transition between Dr. Scalia's property and the new paved property? Is that just going to be like a seamless asphalt transition? Is there any problem with that or situation?
No, that was all surveyed upon the completion of that construction. And we designed our parking area for the applicant's improvements to exactly meet Dr. Scalia's parking lot, both where the curbing is and where the pavement is. So that will be a seamless transition. There is a gate there presently, and there would be no change to that configuration.
Okay, thank you.
And will
And
the
just
traffic
before I'm-
be going in both directions, in and out of that driveway to the back?
Yes, that's designed for two-way traffic.
Well, can I go?
What is the width of that? What is the width of that, Paul? It looks like,
Looks very narrow, that's what I was asking, yeah.
I have a question.
That's a
Yeah, go
20
ahead,
If I can
Nick.
go next.
The
Yes, go
driveway
ahead, Nick.
is 4 feet wide.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't get those numbers. Go, Paul.
The driveway is 24 feet wide.
24, okay. Go ahead, Nick.
Back on the site plan. I had a question about the recycling or refuse container there. Is that on the same level as the parking lot? I can't tell where the level changes.
So the trash area enclosure for lot 1, the
Right.
appliance building, would be located immediately adjacent to the rear loading dock. And that's shown on our plan. And then the trash area enclosure for lot 3, which would service the other building, that would also be located at the rear level at the right behind the existing country picnic building. So right now there's kind of a scattering of dumpsters along the back property line facing the school property. Those would be eliminated, and there would be a trash enclosure meeting the township requirements on each property.
Okay, and that's at the same level as the parking lot?
At the rear parking lot, yes, at the lower rear level.
The lower parking lot, right. Okay, thank you.
Which is essentially basement level.
That is correct. And just also for the record, we agreed to satisfy Mr. Ferraro's comments in his correspondence.
Paul
right,
Fox, is
I'll
there
open
anything
it.
else in Mr. Ferraro's review letter that needs to be addressed?
No, I briefly had a discussion with Mr. Ferraro on some of these items, and we're all on the same page.
Excellent.
Okay, is there anyone from the public that has any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Mr. Farrar, you want to bring up your architect?
Yes. I'd like to introduce Jonathan Booth. John, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. John, you haven't been qualified, so do you want to explain to the board, tell them who you are, your address, your educational and professional qualifications, please?
Sure. I have a private architectural practice. It was established in 1985. I have a bachelor and a master of architecture from Clemson. And I specialize in residential architecture. I've appeared before many neighboring boards. I don't think I've appeared before Bedminster. I don't think I've ever appeared before Bedminster at the planning board or board of adjustment. I'm located.
We won't hold that against you, Mr. Booth.
Okay.
So the board will recognize and accept your qualifications as a registered architect.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. John, you want to run through your plan?
Rich, can you bring those architect plans back up again?
Can you see this one?
Oh, we're seeing Paul's letter. Can you go back to the architectural plans, Rich?
Hang on.
I thought you Clemson guys would stick together.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Got it now?
Yes,
These are
that's
by hand. I'm impressed. These don't look like CAD drawings.
No, old school.
There you go. All right.
Okay, Mr. Booth?
Yes, so the explanation that Paul Fox presented earlier is right on. It's it's a banked in structure. So from the south side or from the south parking lot, it is a two-story structure. From the north side, from Lamington Road, from Route 202, it's a one-story structure. The addition, it is set back about 30 feet from the front of the former Desiderio Deli building. So in these illustrations, it might appear, yeah, that's illustrated pretty well in that east elevation, you know, the setback from the front.
Mr. Booth, could you tell us the part that's currently there and where the addition is for the board? Can you explain that to us?
The part that's currently there being the former Desiderio Deli building?
Yeah, the country picnic building
Yes, the current building, and then show the addition.
where Rich has the hand.
Describe it. Okay, describe it.
This is the current,
So,
right? Mr. Booth?
I'm sorry?
Mr. Booth, this is the current building,
That's the current building,
and this is the expansion.
correct?
And what is the square
From
footage
side view,
of?
it's set back 30 feet, and then the two-story structure here.
Two-story from the south, one story from the front, now from the north. Now, when I say one story, the eave line of the addition, in other words, if you're standing in the front of the building on the north, the eave or the overhang is at 14 feet. So it's a generous one story. We tried to match the roof lines of the existing building to integrate it as much as we could architecturally. So you have a nice generous roof pitch. The spaces, above 9, 10, 11 feet within that first floor are not included in the square footage. It's not anticipated that there would be any functional or functional use of that space, other than maybe like an office mezzanine, very limited. If this is a retail operation or a restaurant, or I know we have a restaurant that sort of has other implications, but assuming it's a retail establishment, there might be a manager's office within that upper space, but it would be a very limited kind of mezzanine or loft type space. It's not a primary public retail space.
How much square feet is there on a second?
Can you tell us how much square foot is in this building to start with and what you're adding to it?
Sure. The Country Picnic building as it exists is 1,752 square feet on 2 levels. So obviously that's like a small house, right? And that's what it is. That's exactly what it was, a small house. The addition on each level, including the south, which is banked in, and including the first floor, which is on the north side and accessible from the north parking lot area. Each of those levels is 1,338 square feet. So the total addition is 2,676 square feet, excluding any, of what I referred to earlier as the mezzanine or a small office area, which would only ever be, 200 square feet about. A lot of the internal arrangement of the building is a bit speculative because, of course, we don't know who will be ultimately the user of this space. I mean, I'm trying, the response that we had on a site level and on an architectural level was to try and create a sensitive, integrated addition to a small structure. That's in part why we set it back from the front, so it doesn't, compete with the existing front facade, the historic front facade of the existing structure.
So your total square footage of the building is how much total?
The total square footage is shown on the architectural drawing. It's 4,428 square feet.
Now that includes the second floor in the existing building?
Actually,
2,700 square foot expansion and 1,700 square foot initial
yes.
dwelling.
Yep, I got you.
Correct. That includes the second floor of the existing structure, which is 540 square feet.
Mr. Booth, this is Lou. Do you know exactly how much square footage is in that mezzanine area and or the ceiling heights in that mezzanine area? Because it appears to me that wasn't added into the square footage calculation.
It's not added.
It's not.
I mean,
Let's slow down. Let's slow down a little bit, Mr. Booth. This is Mr. Collins. I know you're trying to think ahead and you're trying to figure out how to plan for the future and speculate about it, but technically, this is a significant floor area ratio variance just to everything without the mezzanine or office. So since you've sort of, you've applied for something that didn't have any floor in a mezzanine, I think maybe the applicant and you need to sort of regroup on this a little bit because, it's not exactly consistent with the plans or even allowed to go. It's a significant devariance to just ask for the floor area ratio to begin with. Okay, so I don't mean you couldn't ask, but I just think we shouldn't be speculating. I think it has to be like you really want this and you got to prove it and make sense and it has sufficient parking, and I don't think everything's been designed to include this space. So I just think the four of you have to rethink this.
Tom, can I ask, do we have a report from the Historic Preservation Commission? Because this is in the historic district.
Not sure, I don't know.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen one, and while I think that what Mr. Booth has proposed is a fairly handsome building on its own merit, it seems like when it's juxtaposed with this little house, as was characterized, and it is a little house, that there's kind of a collision of size, scale or something. I'm just trying to understand how the historic fabric of the village will be changed more by this. And it doesn't mean that a small house should dominate the landscape here. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm just looking at the two things side by side and I see a roof that goes up higher than the original building. And maybe that'll be fine, I think if we don't hear from the Historic Preservation Commission, we probably won't have a sense of what they think would be okay here.
I agree.
What is the height of this building? I can't see what the height of this is with the new extension.
26 feet, Carol. If you take a look.
What is it?
Looks like it's 26 feet.
26 feet to the
Am I reading
to
that
the
right?
ridge.
Yeah.
Wait.
Looks
Okay.
like it's the same height as the chimney on the existing building.
Are there any plans for doing something with the existing building? I mean, I think it's a little bit run down last time I was there. Going to be the way it is, or are there plans to, modernize it, clean it up?
Windows, existing.
Whatever terms.
Yeah, everything says existing here. Is that true? Existing roof, existing windows, siding.
In the absence of tenants or business owners that are to occupy these spaces, we're trying to be flexible in how they're arranged. So the existing country picnic structure can remain unto its own and be its own entity. And the proposed addition can be a second business or entity, or they could be interconnected. They have a connection point, obviously, and it could be one enterprise or one business.
Does the application, I'm sorry, Mr. Booth, does the application specifically request the second principal use on one lot besides the FAR variance?
No.
Well, they would be the same use. Presumably they'd be the same use, a business use.
I thought you meant two separate tenants, which would be two separate uses according to the ordinance.
There would be two tenants.
So if the application needs to be modified or clarified to include that part of the request, all I'm saying is we need to be clear that that's part of what you're asking for. Given the location, the nature of the spaces and everything, it seems very logical that there'd be two tenants unless one tenant needed all that space. So I'm not troubled by that as much as I just want to make sure that the record covers everything you might need approval for.
A question. We're talking about the street level floor being split into two spaces. There was, and there is in the plan, that lower level might also be space. I don't see an interior staircase between the street level floor of the new addition and the basement, right? I see an exterior staircase coming off the deck. Is there going to be an interior staircase, or are we talking about potentially 3 tenants in this space?
I haven't had a high level of consultation on the tenant things, frankly. So I don't personally, and I don't know how this affects the application, but my response to the site and to the needs here was more of an architectural and a massing solution that I thought was sensitive. I think that it could be one tenant for the entire structure, or it could be 3 from a functional standpoint. And the massing, obviously, in any case, would be the same. So,
is there an interior staircase between the?
So that for that reason, I haven't developed the plans to the level where we know whether there will be an interior staircase or not.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, but that's
fine. I mean, that's the answer. That's fine.
Yeah.
Or whether the basements are even connected inside, So,
The
if
basement-
could you scroll down to the plan, Rich?
For purposes of the application, although it might turn out to be any number of things,
Mhm.
the board needs a definitive request for what it is you would like it to turn out to be. So I appreciate the need for flexibility. That makes sense. But if that means you're not looking for 3 potential tenants there, let's make that clear now. Or
Well,
2,
Frank, I don't disagree with you. It's Brian Fahey here. I don't disagree with you. My understanding was that this design was for a single tenant, a single user of this building. However, based on the testimony, it sounds to me like that's maybe not as strict as my understanding was. So I think.
But Brian, if now's the time where you want to amend the application while we're on the record to that extent, I think the board's listening to whatever you're saying now.
Right. I'm not. I don't know that I want to go all the way there yet, Frank. But what I think we should do is, I think I should ask that we don't go further with this application tonight. That we kind of recalendar this for next month and let me go back to Mr. Brady, the owner of Rylocate Incorporated, and see if I can kind of get a clearer idea so that we're not going into the board with with an ambiguous plan. I agree. I don't think you guys can and should do anything about this until we know what the inside's going to look like and whether there's going to be one user or more than one user. My understanding was that there was no second floor in the addition. So, I'm kind of learning things here, and I'm not happy with it. So I don't want to. I don't think it's worth it to bring Mr. Peel and let John testify in his capacity as a planner to the FAR, because we don't really know what that FAR looks like yet.
No, I think that's prudent, Brian. Go back and clarify what you're asking for, and I appreciate your candor there.
Yeah,
I think the board appreciates that you're not going to, try to wing this without having all the answers for us tonight.
That's right. That's right. It's not right for the board, and it's not right for the applicant either. So that would be my request, that we kind of stick with Mr. Fox and Mr. Booth's testimony so far, but we bring Mr. Booth and Mr. Peel back next month and continue this with a little bit more information as to the specific design of the inside of the building.
Carol,
Can you talk a little bit?
Wait, I want to ask Paul Farrar something. I think it might help to clarify. Paul, isn't it true that they need to come in for a use regardless of what the board might approve it for just a general?
Yeah, any tenant will need a change of use / occupancy application. However, the points Frank brought up are very valid, that, absent approval for multiple tenants, it's permitted for one tenant. And I think that's the point that everybody's trying to get at here. Really, how many tenants are we talking about for this building? Potential tenants. It could all be one.
Regardless whether it's one or whether it's two, it still would have to have an approval of use. Isn't that correct, Paul?
Each individual tenant, when they're ready to occupy, would have to come in.
Right. Okay.
And it would be reviewed to ensure it's consistent with the board's approval.
Correct.
But Carol,
Okay.
that's if the use is already approved for, let's say, the uses office
Right.
in the board's resolution,
Right.
then all that happens is the tenant would theoretically come into the zoning office, or perhaps the zoning officer checks with Paul. But if it is office and it meets the requirements, it does not come to the board.
No,
So-
I understand that. I'm not
Okay.
saying it comes to the board, but what I'm saying, it still has to get a use approval, whether, if we approve it for offices, okay, that might be one thing, but then maybe it might be a deli, or it might be, another use altogether of retail or something. So that would have to come to Paul for a use.
That's right, Paul and the zoning officer, but not necessarily the board.
Correct.
So,
But the other
all
thing
of-
is, at the time the board is approving this, if it were going to be 2 or 3 separate uses, we would look at how each of those sites were going to be accessed and where the likely parking load was going to be and all that stuff differently than if the whole
Absolutely.
thing is one deal. So
Absolutely. I understand completely. Yes. But
Can
the
I
board
ask a
needs to
couple-
know
can
that
I
it
ask a
needs to
couple
get
questions?
a use approval. Yes. Yes, Rich.
So, couple things. The zone permits deli, because that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The zone would
Mhm.
permit a medical practice because we have a vet and a medical office, all in the same zone, correct?
Retail and office uses, yeah, wide
Yes.
range are permitted.
Okay, so I'm a little lost because we're talking about a use variance here, but we're not really talking about a use variance, are
No,
we?
not a
No,
use
but-
variance, Rich. Not a use
No,
variance. Just a use approval.
Right, so
The
whenever you get
nature
to
of
tenant, we'll have a
non-variance-
change of occupancy permit, but that's about all.
No,
Correct.
Rich,
No, Rich.
why we're involved, go ahead, Tom, I'm sorry.
Rich, it's not a D1 use variance.
No.
But it is a D variance for the floor area ratio to be increased at all, because it's already non-compliant. So,
And for more than one commercial use on the lot.
and it's a D variance to have more than one commercial use, to more than one principal use on the same lot. So all of which is properly before the board for the board to hear. But we have questions, even the applicant's representatives are not sure how they want to answer tonight. And
I get that part, Tom, but so any of one of a variety of uses from a practical sense can work. Because we're expanding the FAR and expanding the size of this structure, we need a D1 variance, I guess, as opposed to.
no, not a D1. It's I don't know the number for floor area ratio. It's probably
D4, Tom.
D4.
I think it's a D4.
And
All right, but
and
because
it doesn't
this is a
really
completely
matter.
speculative development, let me just understand something. Because this is completely specular, we don't have a tenant in hand, right?
Correct.
There's no tenant in tow, so we don't know what the use could be. It could be,
I think the issue is how many tenants it might be, Rich. I think one tenant is no big deal, but if it's 3 tenants, it could be.
It would be.
And if one of them is a restaurant, that might implicate, as Paul Farrar pointed out, parking requirements that make this not possible to be multiple uses.
all right, so my question then is for the applicant, from a standpoint of marketing this development, what is the applicant's vision for this structure as designed?
Right. And I'm going to answer that question for the time being. And I'm going to say my understanding, and maybe it's a limited understanding, was that it was intended for a single user. However, I don't know that to be the case. And so rather than me being speculative, I'm going to ask that we continue this at the next meeting so that I can sit down with Mark Brady and talk about how he wants this to be presented. If it's more than one user, it may lead to other variances or different variances that we seek. We're not asking for that yet. We're not asking for any use variance here at all because we presume the use to be permitted in the zone and the number of users to be permitted in the zone. If that's not the case, then we may have to add a D1 variance to this, which we do not seek right now. We seek one D variance and it's a D4 floor area ratio variance. It's a non-use D variance. That I hope it doesn't, but it may change.
Brian, if we can be sure that whatever we're going to agree to here, I mean, from the town's point of view, I don't want to say that more is better, but in the world that we live in retail and commercial space, diversification of that space may mean that one tenant can stick around when others have to go or whatever. So I'm not suggesting a bias against more than one use. I just want to make sure that however they're arranged, it really works for the township, because this is a site that has all 4 of these lots have been part of a place that doesn't work so well.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Front and center on Main Street.
Yeah, and, we're cleaning it up, but we want to make sure that it is what it is. And I'd go forward and say it's a single-use building, but I don't feel comfortable doing that without my client's direction.
Well,
Okay.
that's only fair.
I like to make a comment. This is Lou. Rich, can you go back to that architectural drawing for us? I have a couple questions for the architect. Yeah.
I have an idea for the applicant.
Right.
Ferry
Okay.
Market in New Hope.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me just get through what I have to go through. Mr. Booth, was this exact plan what was shown to and approved by the Historic Commission?
Yes, I was looking back through what notes I have on our presentation to the Historic Commission, and I might be corrected on this. So, but I believe in January of 2019, we appeared before them, and I believe that, excuse me, they reviewed the entire site. But they authorized or gave approval to the phase 1 removal of the easternmost structure at that time. And again, I'm welcome to be corrected on this because I'm just looking at these notes.
Hey, John, let me just say one thing, and I'll be very brief. The board should know, when this plan was brought to me, it included 2 phases. It was a 2-phase plan that included removal of one building and then some space. And I recommended strongly to the applicant that we do not do that we do it all in one swell foop, so that it doesn't look like we're trying to get past the board on anything. And so it was my fault. It was my doing.
That was good advice, Brian. That was really good. That was good advice, Brian.
It was, definitely,
Okay.
Brian.
I'm not, I'm not finished yet. So
Well, then I retract what I said, but not to interrupt you, but these elevations and plans were reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I like Frank to join in here at any point. To me, this plan looks like 2 different buildings. And in the past, the Historic Preservation Committee have always wanted, when you're joining 2 buildings or putting an addition on, to make it look like one historic property. Here you have vertical beadboard kind of design on the addition, and horizontal clapboard on the on the old building. You have 2 different roof heights. I would recommend that, and I'm not speaking for the Historic Commission, I just know the historic area because I own property there, that this plan be a little bit more worked out a little bit. And maybe Frank can give some.
Well, Lou, let me suggest
Lou, that's
something.
not necessarily true. What did we do for the cancer group down on Burnt Mills Road?
That's not
They've got
historic.
2 diverse structures.
That's not village neighborhood, Rich.
You got to think about it as if it's a building with a barn behind it. That's why.
Hang on for 1 second.
One at a time, please.
Lou asked if I had an opinion about this, and the one thing I need to say, and I hate to have to correct him, every time we build in a historic climate and environment, there's a tendency to want to make everything harmonize. And we frequently think that harmonize means make it look just like the old stuff. Actually, historic preservationists try to make it very clear to us that when you build new in a historic setting, you don't want it to look like the old stuff because you want it to be clearly distinguishable so that if I drive through town, I can tell what's really old. So the issue I brought up before is much more of one of massing and scale, but those disparate materials that Lou was talking about don't offend me at all because they make it very clear that that's the new thing. I just wonder if the scale of it is the right kind of scale, that's all.
Thank you,
Frank, if I could just jump in very briefly, just to clarify one item. The Historic Preservation Commission did issue a certificate of appropriateness in March of 2019 with a comment that there should be additional plantings around the pergola. So they have approved it. They have issued that report.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
I just sent it to everybody.
Thanks, Janine.
Thanks, Janine.
Thank you, that's helpful, Janine. Okay, anyone else on the board? Do they have any more questions or any suggestions that you'd like to give this application?
I would just say, Brian, I would assume that based on what you come back with from the client, that that they'll probably need to update a couple of these plans, and if so, let us know and get them to us before and any meeting is rescheduled.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if there are changes to the plan, we'll have them to you greater than 10 days prior to the next month's meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Brian,
Madam Chair,
I have to thank you for not just trying to plow ahead here like so many people would attempt to do, because we'd much rather know, like you'd much rather know what's really going to happen.
Agreed.
Yeah, it makes much clearer for us. And I do appreciate that, Brian.
Of course.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Gotta know what you're voting on.
And,
Yeah,
and we're here in good
exactly.
faith. We're just trying to make a situation that's not so attractive into as nice a situation, as more attractive a situation as possible.
And we want you to be successful too. I mean, that's the goal, definitely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyone else have any suggestions, comments?
This is Mr. Collins.
Okay.
I do. Going back to the floor area ratio, I just want to suggest that really everything about the changes that might take place, whatever flexibility the applicant would like, should all be built into all of the plans and integrated into both the engineering and the architecture.
I agree.
Understood, Mr. Collins, and agreed.
And I'm not lecturing or anything. So what I'm trying to say is, let's try to get. We're not telling you like you can't have this use or you can't have that use. We're trying to say, whatever uses you would like and whatever potential options you would like, try to build them into everything about the plans. Now that gets very hard with floor area ratio and things like mezzanines. They're absolutely counted in floor area ratio. We have to count them. It's in the statute that we count them. It is a variance to go to where we're going, which is what you're entitled to ask for and which often gets granted. But it's time to like put all those things together with the stormwater management perhaps and the paving of the parking lot and any fine details that you'd like to make and put them all in a revised set of plans and use this time for that advantage. And so whatever, I would also suggest to the board members, especially Rich Travellini or anyone who has architectural comments, that this is a good time to tell the applicant or give them suggestions because then they wouldn't have to redo it again later. Okay, so if we are at all of that stage where anybody has any strong opinions about facade materials or anything like that, it is a good time to talk about it.
I definitely think we need a section through the expansion. So we understand the multiple floors, the potential for mezzanines, those kinds of things. Because initially we're just talking about two floor plans and 1,338 square feet on each. But if we're talking about a mezzanine, how big is the mezzanine and that kind of thing. So
Connectivity between the buildings and offices too, I think, has to be addressed.
Right. Now that depends on what the plan comes back as, and I would agree with that. Maybe a basement plan, and if a mezzanine isn't included, we should have a plan for that. Or maybe the building isn't so large, as Frank suggested. The massing may have to be thought a little too. So, but I think that all will rest on what you come back with from the client.
And the other thing, if I could just add, I'm not really trying to suggest that the floor area is too much. And I realize if they're asking for that variance, that's kind of early in the game for me to say that. But I think what Tom was saying before is if you're going to try to ask for 3 separate tenancies, which I can easily understand how that might be configured, if you show us that plan when you ask for that, and we can look at that and say, yeah, if you ever get 3, that works. Well, then if you only get 2, it probably still works. And if you only get 1, it always works. So it just would be great for us to not end up a year from now saying, oh my God, what did the board do here?
even if it's just a
I think they call that foresight, Frank.
demise.
Yeah, I think the flexibility should be there with the climate of, trying to get tenants today. I think they should get that. So that should be the foresight or the plan that, we look at.
And we look at that and we can say that could work. And then if they only
Right.
get 2 tenants, then that works too. Yeah, I agree, Carol. We
Right.
need to be
Yeah.
really proactive in helping business today.
Absolutely, yeah.
Excuse me, this is Paul. Let me just weigh in here very briefly. And I think somebody touched on this before, that part of this thought and discussion relates to the different types of uses in the building, because as the plan is currently submitted, it all is considered office and retail. So there's one parking ratio that's used. A restaurant would have a different parking ratio. So that needs to be considered, because we have to know if parking relief is required, what that level of relief might be.
Well, obviously, if there's a restaurant or another use that requires more parking, that has to be taken into consideration, or they would have to come back to the board for us.
Yeah. Just so we know, when we started this process, Desideras was still the tenant, and we didn't think they were leaving. So this addition was actually designed for them.
Oh, that makes a whole different ballgame.
That makes sense now. Okay. I have a
Got
question.
it.
Karen, Lou, I have another question for Frank. Frank, you know more about the historic preservation than any of us on here. Can you get some insight as to why the Historic Preservation Committee would be looking for that pergola on the street side? I'm not sure
I agree.
I don't get that.
You know, I'd like to talk with them before I commented. I don't understand what the function of that would be in enhancing the relationship of the new development to the historic setting. And again, a lot of times I work with historic preservation commissions in some towns where they think their job is to make the new building look exactly like the old building. And everybody in the historic preservation community knows that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. So I'm not disappointed at the effort that the architect made here to give us something that can be a meaningful part of our town. And the difference in materials doesn't trouble me at all. I think scale becomes the whole thing here more than floor plan. But if it's one use, I think the parking will be no problem. If there's a restaurant, any kind of a deli or anything, it would probably be a vibrant element in town that we keep talking about wanting to have more vitality, but it would also chew up half the parking or something. So we just have to be clear that, you know, on plan A, you get to do this, plan B, you get to do this. I think they'll show us a couple of different versions of how this could happen.
And I think you have to roll back a little bit, as Mr. Fahey said. When this was originally conceived, this was going to be associated with the deli use that was there. And I think that was the concept behind the pergola, to provide an outdoor space for people to sit.
In anticipation of the pandemic where we have outdoor dining.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and the irony about that really is outdoor dining, wherever you put it. I mean, you go into cities and they bump out, they get rid of parking spaces to put it in the street. So outdoor dining is a nice thing if we can do it. It helps people remember that you want to stop here. But is that pergola going to be something that really invites that, or is it scale-wise, is it not really going to do the job? Because
it's on the opposite side of the parking lot, so
it's so separate.
All the way. It's
Right.
not something we'd be more than happy if you guys said get rid of it.
Well, Frank, I think if you can find out, Frank, if you can find out from the historical commission what the purpose was, and maybe they may have a change of heart, especially if we think that we may do different use than what maybe was originally thought about over a year ago. So
right. I will do that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's necessary. Yeah.
Agreed.
Hello, can I make a comment? This is Joe Scalia.
Yes, Joe.
Yeah,
Wait,
so
Joe, you have to be sworn. Wait, Joe. Wait, Joe.
Okay.
Joe,
For Dr. Scalia, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
And Dr. Scalia, please spell your last name and state your address.
Sure. My last name is spelled Scalia. My address is 2 Brushwood Drive, Burtonsville, New Jersey. I'm also the owner of 316 Main Street, Bedminster, which is directly next door. I have a concern about the pergola and its location, as it's next to the driveway, and will it cause an obstruction for vehicles moving out of the driveway into the street and vice versa, and cause issues with pedestrians also?
Yeah, agreed. I think it's necessary that we review that.
Yeah, they're all really good points, and I think the board needs to consider every part of that.
Yeah.
Can I also just comment, because I was on mute before and I couldn't speak when I couldn't figure out how to unmute. In reference to the gravel and the drainage in the rear lot, I have some significant concerns, as we have on our property with our significant renovation a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we placed in a large number of dry wells and appropriate curbing, and spent a great deal of money doing that along with the paving. And my concern is with the gravel, and this is a significant improvement of the property that's proposed here, including, I'm assuming, retaining walls for the upper parking lot, an addition that looks to be almost the same size as the current building, that it's going to change the drainage of rainwater. And I would like that there be appropriate dry wells and paving of the entire rear parking lot, which I think Mr. Fahey was agreeing to.
I think that's going to be reviewed again with our engineer, because I don't think that's been clarified at all yet.
Okay, thank you.
Well, the paving has, the board is going to
Well,
require
the
the
paving,
parking
yes.
lot to be paved.
Paving.
Yeah, I
And the
think.
details
The
of stormwater
drainage.
management, right, but they will have to meet the township's ordinances for stormwater management. And Mr.
Proper
Fox will be
drainage.
working
Yeah.
on that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, I don't think there's anything else that we need to talk about on this at this point. I think we're going to carry
need
this,
to-
John.
Yes, we need to carry it to a date certain and get an extension from Mr. Fahey, which I'm sure he'll grant, but we have some business next week, which I think is going to consume at least that one night. So I think we're off to July something.
July, yes. And we always have trouble with that first Thursday in July. What do you think there, Paul?
The first Thursday in July is the 2nd. So yeah, that probably will be an issue, and maybe so the next one would be July 9th.
Right, I think that's where we need to go.
Yeah.
Is that
Now,
all right,
Mr.
Mr.? Yeah, go ahead.
Fine.
Would you like?
Paul, we have room on that agenda, Paul?
We have nothing on July 9th yet.
Awesome, great.
That works.
Brian, would you like to be on for July 9th, or would you like to take some more time to do any revisions? And
Let's accept the July 9th meeting, and if I have a problem with that, and I don't think I will, I think we'll be able to clarify the issues that need clarification very quickly. If I have a problem, I'll let Janine know.
Okay, and then will you please confirm on the record that the extended timeframe for action by the board until the end of July?
I absolutely agree to that exactly as you presented it.
Why not the end of the year?
Thank you, Mr. Fahey. And who is that, Frank?
That's
No, I'm sorry.
He's a tough guy. I'm such a nice guy, that's why.
You're a good guy.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Fahey and the applicant.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And we'll just continue on. Is there anything, any comments that the board would like to make? Either, is there anything at all? No? Okay, I guess we just need a
One thing we'll
motion.
just confirm in the,
Yes, John?
one little bit, Madam Chairman.
Yeah.
Let's just confirm clearly that the case of Rylocate, the application, is carried without additional notices to July 9th meeting of the board at 7
Correct.
p.m.
Yeah.
And it may be remote, or it may be back in the meeting room, but either way, anyone interested who's still interested should contact the board secretary before the July 9th to find out if this is remote or at a meeting space.
When do we renotice and when don't we
And there'll
renotice?
be no further notice.
Usually if it's
Most
carried over, you
times
don't have
It is
to.
advisable to only, right, most times it's best to carry the notice, and the case law supports that because the people who are interested in a hearing should attend every hearing if they're interested until the case is over. So I strongly advise that you carry notices, and especially in cases like this where the applicant is
Okay, I
cooperating.
just had a question
on
about what the
for
standard was.
action.
Okay.
Also, before we,
Reasonable. The standard is reasonableness.
we have a subcommittee meeting on June 9th. We finally have reconciled a date at 8:30. Everybody's in agreement with that, and I think everybody has agreed to that. Is that correct?
Madam Chairman, we're gonna
I thought
stay
it was-
tonight, okay?
Good night,
Excuse me,
everybody from the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
June 11th, I think, Madam Chairman. I
Yeah,
could
that's
be
what I
wrong.
said, June 11 at 8:30.
Thursday,
that's
June
for the
11th at
subcommittee.
8:30.
Yes, that's the subcommittee meeting, yes.
June 11th.
Okay?
11 or 9?
11th, George.
It's the 11th at 8:30, okay? June 11th at 8:30. Okay, do we have a motion to call it quits
So
for
moved.
tonight?
Seconded.
All
George
right.
and Scott.
You
George
guys
and
are doing,
Scott.
this is awesome. Do you realize how efficient you all are being these days?
You're getting better at this.
Can't believe we're doing this. Works pretty well.
Yeah, we
I
already
think
have
we've
the,
done quite well.
I already
And
got
plus,
the
if you
invite for
wanna-
the 11th too, Carol, right?
When you
Yeah,
wanna
I
see
sent
the-
out the invite for the
Yes.
subcommittee meeting this morning.
Yes, correct.
June 11th.
June 11th, okay?
I like the way the screen sharing makes everybody see the exact same thing at the same time in the same frame of reference. Like if you're in a public hearing, some guy's up there standing there with a board pointing at it with a pointer, and maybe you see it or don't, you know? I mean, this is really pretty effective, I think.
I love it. I can go to the shore. This is great. I love it.
I need to be able to do it from the lake.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Hey, listen, it cost me 100 miles and $40 to come home to our land use meeting, so I'm loving it.
Should I stop the
Enjoy.
recording now? Are we all done, adjourned, or?
We're
We just
done.
need a motion, right? We
Good
need a
night,
motion.
everybody.
Motion to close.
We
I
have
think
it.
the motion done been made and approved.
Oh,
Okay,
Has
good.
been.
Good
good
night,
night,
everybody.
Night, guys.
And I'll see you next week.
Yep, thank you.